All right, and we're back. James Thompson and Jared Sweat talking some UGA rebranding efforts in our last segment. We're going to move to the athletic side of things here. Jared, did you make it to Atlanta for the kickoff game last week?
I did. I actually work for a company that does video production for the Athletic Association, so I was actually down on the sidelines up in the student section getting some video.
Very cool. Well, I was there completely as a fan, and I enjoyed that very much. It was a good game. But I couldn't help but feel like something was missing.
And what's that?
Well, it was this.
It's Saturday night in Athens. And it's time.
The voice of Brook Whitmire, legendary voice of Sanford Stadium. He joins us now via phone. Brook, how are you, sir?
James, I'm well. How about you?
Doing great. Thanks for calling in this morning. So, look, how are the Golden Pipes, man? Are they ready to go? Everything good for tomorrow?
Ready to go. Looking forward to it. Had a sound check yesterday, and it made me realize that the season's actually, well, it was here a week ago, as you and Jared both know, but home season starts tomorrow, and I couldn't be more excited.
So do you have to go around whispering for like the last week or two to make sure you're saving everything up? Or
it's funny you mentioned that, because yesterday afternoon, just at the end of the workday, my voice was feeling a little tired, and I thought, I need to start getting it ready. So I'll try to be quiet today after we hang up here in a little bit.
Awesome, very good. Well, looking forward to hearing you tomorrow. Now, look, what's the preparation process look like for you these days? Are you still prepping for tomorrow, going through rosters and stuff, or are you pretty much already good to go?
I am, James. Typically what will happen is during the summer I will start getting familiar with, of course, our roster and in particular the new guys and the numbers and whatnot. And then each week, as you know, it's a different opponent, so it's a different group. And in this case, it's Nichols. And being from Louisiana, I'm always a little bit interested to see how many Cajun names we'll have and that sort of thing with pronunciations and whatnot. But yeah, it's just there's the preparation for the game itself, the rosters and names and numbers and whatnot, and then the other things that we do throughout the course of the game, presentations and other things that are delivered during the course of the game. So it's a week by week thing, but typically by this point I'm pretty comfortable with the Georgia side of things. It's just the changing for the opponents each week.
Gotcha. So did you make it to Atlanta last week, or were you watching that on TV?
I did make it to Atlanta, James, and I'd have to echo what you just said. I went completely as a fan, and it was an absolute blast. I thought that was just it was a great night for Georgia. It was a great night for the team, and what a terrific way to start the 2016 season and the Kirby Smart era.
I'd have to agree. We're speaking with Dr. Brook Whitmire, voice of Sanford Stadium here on JM and the AM. So after watching that game, what were your impressions of the team? I mean, obviously a big win for the Dogs. We kind of pulled it together in the second half, pulled away from North Carolina a little bit. But what were what were some positive things that you saw, and what do you think we might need to kind of get our act together on before we get into the meat of our SEC schedule?
I'm sure this week, James, like every fan, I've been reflecting on the game, went back and watched the replay of it, which is always enjoyable. We have kind of a tradition in our house. I'll always tape the game, and I say tape, I'm still using old-fashioned language, DVR it. But I go back too far for that. And then, of course, if we lose, the first thing I do is come in and immediately delete it and never look at it again. But if we win, it's always enjoyable to go back and watch. And thinking back on it, like I said, I'm sure as all fans are doing this week, I loved the way that we won. Of course, it's great to win, but to be in a situation where there were 2 or 3 times when we had to have a stop and we got a stop, or we had to have a drive that converted a touchdown and we got that, or we had to convert a third down and we did. It was the way we did it. And this is intangible and it's subjective, but it truly brought me back to the days of the 80s and other times where that fight, that will to win, that, hey, we just gave up a 95-yard touchdown, but nobody's panicking and we're going to be fine. I just really liked the way it played out. And of course, and I'm no coach, and I'm sure those Coach Smart and everybody else, they were doing this Saturday night, Sunday morning. When you go back and look at that film, there are always going to be things to correct. There are things that we look and we'd say, gosh, like to get a little more pressure on the quarterback. Like to give our quarterback a little more time, perhaps. And of course, we don't want to be giving up 95-yard kickoff returns. That's for sure. So there are things to work on. But I just got to say, the way we did it. I know I'm repeating myself, but it wasn't just that we won. It was the way we did it, and that feeling that you got when all of a sudden it's 24-10, and you're thinking. Part of you wants to think, gosh, are we going to have another disappointment in the Dome? And the next thing you know, we've reeled off 19 unanswered. So I was absolutely elated Saturday night. And not to belabor the point, but I think when you sit back and realize that we were able to put up 33 points, which is a better offensive production than we've had in a lot of games over the last year or so, and then for the defense to hold what I thought was a very sound and really a terrific North Carolina team, particularly the offense, to hold them to 17 points, not counting, of course, the kickoff return, I thought was a very good showing for a first game.
Brook, this is Jared. What were your impressions of head coach Kirby Smart? I mean, I know a lot of people were talking, he was energetic, it showed, and he really seemed to be a little bit more hands-on than what people would have deemed Coach Rick to be. So what were kind of your thoughts on that?
Jared, it was interesting. I was sitting in the sort of really in the end zone, more toward the corner of the end zone, and I was able to have a good view of Coach Smart, and had my faithful binoculars with me, as I always do, and I would echo what you just said, and I'm sure the impression of a lot of people. What an energetic guy, and someone that is obviously in tune with and involved with everything that's going on that sideline. It reminded me, and I'm dating myself here a little bit, but he was Coach Smart played. I guess I was in my third or fourth year of announcing when he played, and I always enjoyed him as a player. Enjoyed watching him play. The way he is on the sideline reminds me of the way he is on the field. He just seems to be everywhere, and he seems to be involved. There's nothing that he misses. And so every coach is going to have his style. Some of them are going to be, I grew up really admiring Tom Landry and the Dallas Cowboys, and Tom Landry stood over there and is just dressed impeccably and he showed emotion certainly, but was just this genteel man standing on the sideline. You've got that style, and then you've got somebody that's all over the place like Coach Smart is. But I just think players certainly respond to him. They're going to feed off him. They're going to respond as he is to situations, and so they're really going to take on the characteristics of their leader. And so I was very impressed with the way he carried himself, and really the way really with everything he's done since he's taken over the head job. I think we've got the right guy at the right time at the right institution.
Excellent. We're speaking with Brook Whitmire, who will be behind the mic in Sanford Stadium tomorrow at high noon. Brook, one name that you will hopefully be saying quite a bit tomorrow, at least in the first half, will be that of Nick Chubb. Wow, what a comeback. Coming back from his injury last year, had a 200-yard plus game, over 30 carries in the Dome. What were your impressions of him?
I don't know, James, honestly, and this is high praise. I don't know that I've ever been more impressed with someone wearing the red and black, and that's saying something for all of us. What a young man. I mean, what an unbelievable young man, and I don't think any of us can really grasp, unless we've been there, and I certainly haven't, but to come back from that sort of injury and to work himself silly, by all accounts, he just worked beyond anything anyone can imagine, to where it looks to me like, and I've heard some of the guys that are out there with him say this, but to the naked eye, so to speak, he looks better to me than he ever has. And to have 30, like you point out, over 30 carries, and it's interesting this week, James, I went back, and Jared, I watched some of the replay of the 1981 Georgia-Notre Dame game for the national championship after the 1980 season, and of course number 34 was a big presence in that game, as he always was. and I'm going to say something that a lot of Georgia fans that go back to that era thought they would never say. I would absolutely put Nick Chubb in the category of a Herschel Walker. He's that much of an impact. He's that much of a difference maker. And I sat there the other night at the Dome, and I told my son, James, who was sitting next to me, we're going to be in a lot of games that we otherwise might not be in because of number 27. He's that kind of player. And I don't know, frankly, of a greater story in college football. And I hope the national media, some of it has, but I hope more of the national media will begin to give the notice and credit that is due, because that's one of the greatest individual efforts when you factor it all in that I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd have to agree. I mean, if he keeps putting up numbers like that, the voices expressing sentiments similar to yours will continue to get louder, I would have to think. So tomorrow is a noon game. So that's got to be kind of an early day for you. What's your schedule going to look like tomorrow, Brook?
It is. Well, we have a tradition. One thing I really enjoy with my family is we like going to get a good breakfast in Bolton Hall, which is if there's a nicer dining hall on any college campus in America, I'm not aware of it, but we'll do that as a family, and I'll probably get over to the stadium, hour and a half, 2 hours before kickoff, and usually the first game, just to get the feel of it, I will look over my script a little bit more and continue to study the rosters, and typically I'll meet with someone from the opposition, in this case Nichols, and go over anything that they have in terms of any roster changes or pronunciations, and then just try to get the feel of it and enjoy being in Sanford Stadium along with, as we all like to say, 92,746 of my closest friends.
Right, there you go. And as far as Nichols State goes, I mean, obviously this is a game that Georgia's going to be favored very heavily in. I mean, I guess the challenge for the Dogs is just to stay focused and not let anything distract them from the task at hand. I mean, I know we've got a lot of games that are coming up that are probably much bigger games. But what do you hope to see from them tomorrow as far as focus goes?
I think you've handicapped it exactly correctly, James. I think in these sorts of games, obviously it's not the same as a Georgia-Tennessee game or a Georgia-Auburn game, but I think it is a very, very good barometer of your team when you see exactly what kind of focus can you have and how can we do what we want to do and play to the level that we want to play at. If you can go in and say, hey, look, this is our level of excellence that we're going to achieve. This is the level of expectation that we have for ourselves, and it doesn't matter who we're playing. This is the way we're going to approach it, and this is the way we're going to produce. I think we'll have, in some respects, an even better idea of what kind of team we've got after tomorrow than we did last week. I remember I had the privilege of serving as a trainer on Coach Dooley's last three teams at Georgia, and I remember a game in 1988 when we were playing William and Mary. And obviously we were heavily favored that game and actually had a pretty big lead at the half. But Coach Dooley, rightfully, was not pleased with the way we were playing. It wasn't that we didn't have the lead and we weren't winning. Of course, everybody expected us to be in that situation, but he was upset at the way we were playing. And honestly, that might be the angriest that I've ever seen Coach Dooley in that locker room at the half, and he made it crystal clear that his level of expectation was non-negotiable, and it didn't matter whether it was William and Mary or Florida or Tech or anybody else. We were going to play up to that level, and I'm telling you what, those guys came out that second half and played like it was the Super Bowl. And I rather suspect that the guy we have in charge right now is going to approach it the same way.
I certainly hope so. Now, looking forward to some of the bigger games, some of which you just mentioned, are there any on your calendar that you've already circled that you're really looking forward to calling at home this year, or what's already caught your attention?
Well, the big one will always be Tech for me, James and Jared, and I think any Georgia man understands that is always going to be the biggest one. And anybody who thinks it isn't, just imagine winning all of them and then losing to Tech, and you'll realize how big it is. So Tech's always circled. Auburn is circled. But I got to say, that one on October 1st against the University of Tennessee, I've just got that one circled maybe twice, because after last year, we need to come back and reestablish order in the SEC East. And so for us to have that one at home between the hedges I hope, and I'm planning on that being a big day for the University of Georgia.
Brooke, I completely know what you mean. I have told plenty of my friends that if Georgia wins every single game but loses to Tech, it was almost a failure of a season.
That's right. That's right.
Brooke, do you have a name that sticks out in your mind that was either, your favorite to call or it was the most difficult to pronounce?
Wow, what a great question. There have been some difficult ones through the years. In fact, one thing I've got circled tomorrow, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but Quincy Mauger is no longer Quincy Mauger, which is I love the story of that and his nod to his family there. But I'm going to try to remember that the first time he makes a tackle, which I'm sure will be pretty early on. I remember Muhammad Massaquoi. I butchered his name the first time that he came out there, and he made a great catch, and I had studied it, and I had prepared for it, and I butchered it. And the second I said it, I forget what year this was, I want to say maybe 2005 or so, the second I said it, I was like, oh, that was wrong, and I went back and double-checked it. So, well, you never want to mess one up, particularly one for our side of the field there. But that's, through the years, I would tell you that, gosh, the chance to introduce Charlie Trippi on the sideline when he's there for something, or Dan McGill, or Irk Russell, or Vince Dooley, men that I grew up admiring and having the privilege to know on some level, and just truly some of the greatest dogs ever. Herschel Walker coming back, and then obviously the guys that have played through the years. It's going to be a thrill for me tomorrow, honestly, to introduce Kirby Smart as the head coach of the University of Georgia. I just think it's a great thing, and as I mentioned earlier, and I know all the Georgia people echo this, he's the right guy. He's the right coach at the right time, at the right place. And so to introduce him tomorrow will be a thrill, and I think we'll look back, all of us, at a significant moment in history for his first season and first trip home between the hedges.
Yeah, I think so too, Brooke. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for calling in. Looking forward to hearing you tomorrow morning or tomorrow at noon.
Thank you, James and Jared, and give Matt my best. Hope he's recovering well.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Take care.
We'll be right back.